The gods are funny creatures. I tried to keep my tone light as I spoke to Fakis, the commander of our newest recruits. Powerful beyond our understanding, yet they rarely act without purpose or reason. So, just follow the guidance I have given you, and we will see this Oathbinder annulled and obliterated. Fakis sat across from me, shifting nervously, but did not say anything. He was looking as if he was second-guessing the choice to try to annul the contract that was currently laid out on the desk between us. It was a funny look for a Dragois, being a supremacist no less. But I understood. We were about to do one of those things you are always told never to do. We were about to intentionally invoke a blessed Oathbinder, blessed by the father and son of Criterion, no less. But a moment later, Fakis reached out and placed his hand on the contract and began intoning the challenge. I smiled. The Dragois, while very young, I'd say too young, for one in a command role, would not let his nerves stop him from trying to free his men. The Oathbinder rose from the desk, arcs of energy rippling along its surface, with two spheres of power rising from it and drifting into the open space on the other side of my desk. Don't be cowards. Come yourselves. I said it just above the sound of the summoning. The spheres froze for a moment, and I knew I had gotten my wish as the room went quiet. There, side by side, standing and staring at Fakis and I, was the father of Criterion, Karthus, and his son, Verisar, Skychild. Karthus had a thin smile on his face, while Verisar had a decidedly less amused look. As he spoke, the force of his words were like a gale on our ears. By what cause do you seek to have us arbitrate? I looked at Fakis and merely nodded, and then he spoke. My representative, Mr. Hahn, can explain. And he pointed to me, which made Father grin fully as Verisar turned to look at me. Mr. Hahn, I know you are no fool, and you are well aware of my stance on shenanigans involving Oathbinders. Make your case, but be warned. If we should find your cause wanting or invalid, you will pay the same price as this Dragois here. I only nodded and began. First explaining how I infiltrated the pirate ship after the battle with Fakis and his blast blades. I detailed how I had discovered that the pilots and squadron of the blast blades, who had nearly been wiped out by the defenders of the pirates' target, were under a contract that had been most dishonorably shifted and adjusted, from these men being defenders themselves, intended only to protect the gateway into the pirate system, to them being active parts of raiding activities. That may be, but according to these terms set forth, this does not give them a right of breach. I would hope you have more than appeals to our good natures to back this. Verisar was looking more annoyed by the moment, so I sped up my explanation. I skipped the rest of the 4 days I was hiding on the ship, setting things up for what was about to happen. Instead, I began to tell of how, less than a day before the pirates made it back to their system, they again fell under attack from me. Again, they scrambled their blast blades to fight me off. The last of them, a total of 9, most of them barely functional, having been hastily patched together and comprising all of the squadron's remaining pilots. As I filled in the details of how the fighters offered to hold me off while the ship escaped, and managed to do so, Verisar raised his hand to stop me. No matter how brave or outmatched they were, that is not a betrayal by the captain. And again, it seems that you are wasting my time, Han. Last chance. By the Omnimind, either make a proper point, or this ends now. I tapped a gem on my desk and let the internal recording from the pirate's bridge play. It showed the very damaged bridge and skeleton crew taking the ship away from the combat, as the captain confirmed that they would be able to make it back in less than a day, but the blast blades would be at least a week out. Then, the captain said the magic words. Good. Once we make it back, ensure the gate codes are changed. Those damn Jaguar think they can just fail to kill him the first time and not be punished. Let them face the guns of the gate. Less problems for us in the long run. We can just say they nobly sacrificed themselves, and none will be the wiser. The look on both of the gods' faces was that of disgust and revulsion. We only ask for the binder to be annulled and obliterated. Karthus, still smiling, was the first to respond. You sure? By all rights, you could have us mete out a righteous reprisal for this. Fakis looked at me questioningly, and I answered both of the questions at once. Yes, I am sure. Fakis and his men have been in the service of these pirates for years. Unwilling as it was, that stain is going to follow them. However, there are other factors at play. Thus, a simple annulment and obliteration will allow them to fade from thought and memory. A few years working for me to build their reputations and standing should do the rest. Father and son looked at each other and then responded in one voice. So be it. And the Oathbinder just vanished, as if it never existed. Before they could do the same, I spoke. Since you're already here, please share a glass with me before you go. I have an exquisite vintage and other matters to share with you. I looked at Fakis, who was showing his confusion, as this had not been discussed. You should let your men know that the Oathbinder is settled. I'll be along shortly. Sir, was his reply as he stood and left, giving a bow to our guests before exiting the room. Karthus and Verisar both sat and waited as I retrieved the bottle and poured a glass for each and set them out. As I sat down, I smiled, realizing how it must have appeared to young Fakis for me to seem so casual in the presence of the divine. I knew it would have an impression. And that was part of the point, to instill the proper appreciation for the world he and his men were now a part of. You've always been too soft, Han, Karthus began as he took a sip. Now care to explain how the other party to that binder isn't going to notice it vanishing? Verisar now had his turn to smile as I began, for he knew my style far better than his father. Well, when that ship made it back yesterday, the crew would have all been found unconscious, and the ship was barely holding itself together. After they get the crew out and awake, none of them remember anything for months. Records that will be able to be recovered from the damaged systems are going to show their disastrous attempt to raid that starbase, with them leaving their blast blades behind to make good their escape. The rest of the damaged systems must have tripped their counter-mutiny or counter-invasion protocols, and that released a very potent mix of sedatives and an amnesiac. Whoever installed that was a paranoid one indeed. It's very unlikely any of them will remember anything in the last month, if not 3. Karthus gave a low whistle. I see. So just by annulling and obliterating the Oathbinder, it'll look far more likely that the pirates ended it themselves, and it was lost in the chaos. With it not being magical anymore, it wouldn't have been important anyway. Clever. No memories to counter, and no evidence to counter them. He looked at his son. I can see why you wanted him. Verisar, for his part, smoothly changed the topic. Han, what else are you wanting? Sharing a glass, that's one thing. But I know you better than that. Spill. Now. No dancing around then. I'm claiming the system we are about to clear of pirates. That claim will need quiet, but not too quiet, backing. You want us to endorse you just claiming an entire system. You know that is no longer legal, right? Verisar spoke as he saw the massive loophole I was about to walk through. Not legal for the hunters, but there is no law so far that prevents a private party from doing so. Besides, this situation is rather rare, with only one way in or out of the system. And I believe with just a few proper endorsements and assurances that this is a one-off, which it is, I'm sure you can make it happen. This is going to be my unit's retirement, our base of operations, and our bankroll. Karthus and Verisar looked at each other and both drank deeply of their drinks, letting the flush of energy turn their eyes into beacons for a moment. And then Verisar spoke again. What's in the system? A single way in or out is one thing. His father cut in to finish him. But not enough for you to go to this extreme. They both went to take another drink. I smiled and answered, a star forge. I watched the glasses slip from their hands and begin to fall to the deck in slow motion. I figured that'd get their attention. By the 9 and 4, welcome once more to the library. I am the Recorder, and today we'll be taking a brief look at one of the strongest materials known to the realms and how it is made. That being Starmetal, and the star forges that create it. As always, my perceptive patrons, this is an introduction and will be brief as to not overly complicate matters. That said, what is Starmetal? It's in the name. It's a dark gray matte metal, forged from the matter and energies of a star. Incredibly strong, nigh unbreakable for most normal purposes, it sees most prevalent use by the NLR, whom many credit with the creation of it. Most, if not all of their construction in the pre-war ages was exclusively of star metal. However, they are not the creators of it as many suppose or claim. Instead, they were given one of the first of the star forges, along with the secrets of shaping and using the metal, when they were created by the Nine Wings, who also gifted the dragons with the same, so that the elder races could better perform their duties. Starmetal is, as said, very strong, ridiculously strong. However, for its incredible strength, dozens of times that of even the finest steel, it is also very light, on par or even lighter than the elven favorite of moonsteel, which is generally considered to be about half the weight of normal steel. How this is possible is not entirely clear. However, there is a theory out of North that due to the extreme density of Starmetal, it may actually be canceling out a portion of its own weight and mass with its own weak gravitational field. No matter the reason, it is a highly sought after material for use in star vessels and many other construction uses. Despite this demand, the supply of star metal is not one that is exactly flowing. Most star metal that is used is recycled from scrap found from old sky cities or other relics of war from the time of Feather and Scale. Unsurprising is the amount that actually exists in this state when one considers that for the initial stages of the Elder Race's growth as a people were in the time before time. Now, once time became a regulated thing, the amount of star metal that could be made at one time then, and only then, became a limiting factor. However, by that point, the bulk of what would have been made was already done. Hundreds, if not thousands of sky cities, on both sides of the Elder Line. This almost ensures that there will always be more to be found and recycled, for those that are brave enough to seek it out, and lucky enough to actually find it. Of course, the star forges are able to make new star metal, drawing in the mass and energies of the star they orbit, and then condensing it into star metal via a process that is still not understood, much less replicated, and so far can only be done by a star forge. Even the wise and canny of the divine have not cracked the secret of making a star forge. Their limited number makes each one a prize then, valued most greatly. The Starforge orbits in varying patterns, dipping lower and higher as it does its work. While the exact production rate seems to vary from Starforge to Starforge, it is hard to judge what factors are at play for this. The type of star orbited would make sense, as would if there were multiple stars, but again, these are just supposition. The star forges that are in existence now all date from the time before the wars, and are thought to be the work of the Nine Wings, each placed for the children of Jam'mar to find and make use of. Without any other record or even the hint that there are those capable of crafting star forges, this does seem the most likely. So far, a total of less than 10 star forges are known to exist, with many of those under the protection of the divine, with their production being fed into the markets by the priesthoods of the gods in question. However, it is known that there were, and hopefully still are, at least a dozen if not 2 more star forges out there, all from before the wars of Feather and Scale. As a raw material, star metal is only of value to someone who has the access to the very specialized gear needed to work it. Otherwise, it's a very neat bauble, and only valuable to those who know where to find such buyers. However, tools and gear made of star metal are valued as family heirlooms and used as such across the realms, with many of them being covered, painted, enameled, or otherwise disguised to keep greedy eyes from taking note. With this brief look at star metal and how it is made over, and before we get back to Sarge, I want to thank you for your time and your attention. As always, my perceptive patrons, It means the realms to me. Thank you. Now, until you next make your way to the library for another entry, I have been the recorder. By the 9 and 4, be well, take care of yourselves and each other. Of course, the glasses never made it to the deck, as the gods quickly recovered both their wits and their drinks. Like I said, they're funny creatures. Karthus spoke first. Starforge. And you want us to back your claim to it? Yeah, and I'm more than willing to offer its product to those that ensure that I don't need to worry about the security of my claim. And if you aren't recognized as the system's owner, Verisar knew there was a stick behind this carrot. Then everyone in the realms will find out about it, and the ensuing conflict can distract from the fact that the product of this Starforge had been being sold to the ancient empire for centuries. Stick, with a nice little info bite to sweeten it. Verisar leaned back and smiled. And are you going to fight me for it, Han? Were I to stake my own claim? Before I could answer, Karthus was standing beside his son with a hand on his shoulder. Never mind answering that. We will back your claim, Han. Time to go, son. We need to play politics. Verisar stood and he nodded, setting his glass down, a smile on his face. Of course, Han, good fortune, and don't screw this up. He paused, taking a moment to consider. Ego Core, expect to hear from them. They'd be good folks for you to sell to. May even back your claim for the privilege.